My Govanen, this is the Tolkien Shed talking, and I have watched episode 6 of The Rings of Power. The main outtake I have is that the show is perverting what made The Lord of the Rings great in the first place. Perhaps the best illustration of that is the stolen line in the scene with Gandalf and Tom Bombadil, which I break down at this time in the video. But this is just a prime example. There is so much more that is terrible about this episode, so don't miss it. Let's go! Alright, what insanity awaits us this time? Well, we start somewhere on the road between Mordor and Eregion. We see Arondir running along the trail left by the orcs. Man, I guess this is what all elves do. They just don't use horses. This is the only explanation I have for Arondir running after Adar's army. Anyway, suddenly he is attacked by 3 orcs, but with a handful of needless acrobatics and showing off before the camera, he kills them without breaking a sweat. Then he searches the corpses, and the first thing he does is find a map of the city of Eregion and its surroundings, so that he can now deduce where to go next. How amazing. How convenient. How lucky is Arondir to find an orc that has the very thing he needs. How lucky that an orc would bear a map of Eregion with the details of Adar's plan for attack. But we do not need to concern ourselves with this now, as Arondir does not appear in this episode again. He will make use of the conveniently found information sometime later. Alright, so Arondir follows the tradition of his people and doesn't use a horse, and he is also extremely lucky. We swiftly move to Eregion, where an unspecified time has passed and Celebrimbor stands beside a pile of failed rings. He delivers a monologue that informs us that the rings of men defy him. It is as if they didn't want to be crafted. We then learn that there is no more mithril and that the elves must wait for another delivery from the dwarves. Celebrimbor is visibly irritated, and one of the smiths says that they notice that he has become more frustrated lately. Instead of answering, Celebrimbor asks for the elf's name, so that we see that he is clearly not well, and then Annatar asks all the smiths to leave. He then talks to Celebrimbor, and we see further evidence of the Lord of Eregion falling into madness. He seems to suffer from some sort of dementia or by Alzheimer's disease. He's forgetting names and misremembering things. He is informed that his people want an audience with him, but he refuses as he wants to focus solely on the rings. So he asks Annatar to deal with the matters at hand, including the late delivery of mithril. But before we see that, we have to ask, why is Celebrimbor going insane? Is it Sauron's doing? If it is so, why exactly? Why would he want to play with the mind of his most useful helper, the one that he needs in order to create the rings? Time is running out, but he has nothing better to do but to play tricks on Celebrimbor? And if it is not him that is doing that, then what is? Anyway, Annatar leaves the tower and he is informed that the merchants that usually come to the city did not arrive. Out of a scouting party that was sent to check on the road, only one soldier was found, and he was found dead. There is a message on his body, a message that only Annatar is able to decipher. It reads, "Where is he?" Annatar orders to bury the body and show it to no one. I think it is a bit late for that, it was lying on the street for several hours I presume, but sure, and the scene ends. But we are not done with it, oh no. Alright, so first of all, the rest of the episode confirms beyond any doubt that the cutting off of the city, scouts being killed, and this message on the body was all done by Adar's orcs. Knowing that, we can enumerate all the problems that the scene has. Firstly, the orcs decided to reveal themselves for no reason. Secondly, they revealed themselves but only to Sauron, as nobody else is able to read the carving on the body. Thirdly, Sauron decided to reveal what the message is. Fourthly, nobody asks whom do the orcs mean. Fifthly, the orcs decided to leave a message so ambiguous that nobody can understand it even if they could read it. Why not ask where is Sauron? That would change a lot, wouldn't it? That could even lead to the elves discovering who Annatar is, and would certainly help Adar's plans. But that would be logical, and the show is allergic to logical. Sixthly, I cannot be bothered to count, there is loads of problems, I think you get it. Another one is that Annatar orders not to inform Celebrimbor. Well, the fact that the city might be assailed soon might be of interest to the lord of the said city, don't you think? But of course, no one seems to care. So now, let's summarize Annatar's actions. He appears out of nowhere, seems to have immense influence on Celebrimbor, is behind many of his decisions. And now he comes out and says that the lord of the city is working, nobody is to visit him, and all his power is bestowed on Annatar. If that doesn't seem suspicious to the people of Eregion, then they are puppets, not characters. Luckily for Sauron, Everybody in the show is a puppet, so his plans are safe. But, jokes aside, I would like to elaborate on this. I do want to emphasize that the elves of Eregion are not real characters. I know, when I say it, it sounds strange. Of course they are not. You cannot expect the show to depict all the people of Eregion as fully fleshed out characters. But that's only if we consider them as individuals. But outside of individual characters, there are also collective characters, representing general overviews of certain groups. In Rings of Power, it is the Southlanders, Elves of Lindon, the Dwarves, Númenóreans, and Elves of Eregion. And when it comes to them, they are an unbelievable character. It seems that nobody cares what Annatar is doing. Nobody cares for Celebrimbor. Nobody is interested in the corpses that lay there on the street. No family member or friend wants to know what happened to their loved ones. Nobody wants to send more scouts to learn what is going on. No soldier wants to strengthen the defenses. What am I saying? No soldier was ever protecting the borders, as no news of the giant army of orcs came to the city. Nobody demands to know what does all of this mean. Nobody does anything. This collective character of the people of Eregion is properly assassinated. What do we learn? Celebrimbor. He is irritable, forgetful, and focused only on the rings. Adar, he stands in for all the orcs, reveals his presence for no reason. And Annatar, he acts extremely sketchy. The fact that no one calls him out doesn't mean it isn't stupid. Then we see Adar talking to Galadriel. They talk about Sauron, how he is a great manipulator and that he needs to be destroyed. Adar shows Galadriel the crown from the first episode, and we learn that it is no regular crown, but Morgoth's crown. With this last shred of lore accuracy torn apart, we learn that even though the first time the crown wasn't enough, Adar believes that this time it will be different and he will kill Sauron because Galadriel will help him. Why does she matter to Adar's plans? Well, she has a magical ring, you see, and Adar knows a lot about it. For example, that it healed the tree in Lindon. How does he know that? Well, in order to believe that he is not reading the script, we would have to assume that he exchanged friendly diplomatic letters with Gil-galad and learned about the rings existing and what they did that way. Personally, I think it's a perfectly reasonable conclusion. Anyway, thanks to the information he couldn't have known, Adar constructed this great plan of his to use the crown and the elven rings to kill Sauron. Yeah, the same rings whose main power is making trees shine again. What a load of nonsense! How can anyone, knowing anything about the rings, see them as a weapon? They are not meant for that. They have great power, sure, but for gardening, not combat. You cannot just say that they are powerful so they can be used for anything. It's not how it works. By nature, the elven rings are meant to restore life, not destroy it. But we are not over yet. Adar says that he suspects that Sauron is an Eregion. He then reveals that he figured out that Halbrand is Sauron. And how exactly did he do that? When? Thanks to what information? For all we know, he didn't learn anything new. Did he know it when he had Halbrand imprisoned? Did he intentionally release his greatest enemy? Or what did he learn later that allowed him to reach his conclusions? I mean, he only suspects the truth, but there is no evidence neither for certainty nor suspicion. And what certainty does he have that Sauron, known for being a shapeshifter, is still in the city? The whole thing gets even funnier a few scenes later, where we see Annatar in Khazad-dûm, which is a perfect example of Adar not being able to confirm where he is. To summarize, all Adar's plans rely on him having the information he cannot have, and they still do not make sense. Now we know that Adar reads the script, and he is absolutely certain that Sauron won't run away, which is inexcusable. We then see Elendil, who stands before trial for treason. Pharazôn says that he deserves to be punished by death, but he will be set free if he pledges loyalty to him. Elendil refuses, and he says that it is Pharazôn who is the traitor. I must have missed something. Everything seems perfectly legal, and Eagle chose Pharazôn after all. It might be laughably dumb, but apparently it was enough for the Númenóreans, so I don't get what Elendil means. Anyhow, instead of executing Elendil, the king decides to let the Valar decide his fate. We will soon learn what that means, but we can already ask why would the king give Elendil a chance to escape the punishment after he publicly questioned his right to rule? He could have him executed on the spot and the problem would be solved, but no, we must give Elendil a chance. Alrighty, Elendil, he is principled and ready to die for his beliefs. And Pharazôn, he gives Elendil at least a chance to survive for no particular reason. Then we move to Rune, and I've gotta say, every time we go there I want to turn the bloody thing off. I don't get much pleasure talking about the scenes that happen there either, but I guess we've gotta do it. And you will suffer with me. So, Gandalf has a vision of Nori in trouble. He wonders if he has seen the truth. Tom Bombadil tells him that the secret fire, the power of Eru, the creator of the world, the supreme god, sometimes sends visions and they are always true. Gandalf wants to learn how to have some control over this power, but Tom says that the secret fire doesn't need him as a master. Also, we learn that apparently Gandalf has tried to pass several trials and failed all of them. We must be told that because we saw none of them. And soon Gandalf will face the last trial, but first we move to the Hobbit village in the desert. Nori talks to the village leader, who teaches her about the importance of having a stationary home. Nori seems attached to her new friends, and she considers turning herself into the Dark Wizard to protect them. Meanwhile, Poppy, in literally the 5th scene with Merrimack, kisses him, but it is mainly used for a joke that he has a bad smell in his mouth. Call me crazy, but I don't think that 5 scenes is enough to create a meaningful relationship. How long do they even know each other? For a day? Even if more time passed by, off-screen character development is a terrible way to run your story. But honestly, I do not care. Maybe it's for the better that we don't get more scenes with them. Take that for an example. Apparently Merrimack is called Nobody because his parents didn't choose a name for him for almost all his life. They were just undecisive for about 20 years, so nobody stuck. If it is supposed to seriously represent a meaningful story, then it is bloody stupid. If this is supposed to be a joke, do you hear me laughing? Anyway, a short while later, Nori is convinced by Poppy not to turn herself in, as Gandalf is important and they cannot risk him being captured because of them. But since they want to protect the other hobbits and Gandalf at the same time, maybe they should consider leaving. But, true Rings of Power style, that possibility is not even mentioned. Then Tom takes Gandalf to a forest of dead trees. He says that he will find his stuff among the branches of the forest only when his heart is pure in desiring to serve the secret fire. Now, 2 questions. If your heart must be pure, how did the Dark Wizard find his stuff and then turn to evil so quickly? And secondly, and more importantly, what is the secret fire? I know I told you, but I don't know that from the show, so it failed to explain the nature of the wizard's powers and the core concept behind it. We know nothing about the secret fire besides its name. We don't have the slightest idea of what it means to be devoted to it. This is a fundamental failure at explaining the setting of the world. Then, as Gandalf hesitates between looking for the staff and going to help Nori, the show steals one of the best lines in The Lord of the Rings and puts it into Tom Bombadil's mouth. He says, "Many that die deserve life, some that live deserve death, who are you to give it to them?" And this just frustrates me. They use the intellectual property they bought, I get it. But this is soulless. This is not the context those words were spoken in. It is directly the opposite, as Bombadil here wants to convince Gandalf that he shouldn't try to save Nori's life, while in the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf warns Frodo not to deal out death so easily. The actual quote is, "Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment." The main idea behind this great line is perverted to mean the opposite. No longer does it praise restraint and mercy. Here it is used to justify inaction and letting someone die. And to be plain, I absolutely hate that. To add insult to injury, it changes the quote's origin. We are meant to understand that the memorable words weren't the product of Gandalf's wisdom, he just repeated them. Alright, back to the scene. For some reason, Tom claims that if Gandalf goes to save Nori, he won't be able to gain his stuff. He believes that the danger of Dark Wizard and Sauron working together is so great and imminent that there is no time to save Nori. By that, he contradicts himself from a few moments earlier when he claimed that Gandalf has all the time he wants to find the stuff. This makes the whole scene even worse, if that's even possible. Right, now we know that Gandalf wants to save Nori, took him some time to remember about her, and he has visions from the secret fire. I wish we could say more, but that's it for the characters in Rune, unless we want to add Merrimack's lizard breath. Then we see dwarves bringing literal wheelbarrows of gold before the old king. At this rate, in episode 8, he'll be Scrooge McDuck style swimming in a sea of gold. Then we see Durin as he is summoned before the king, but it turns out that it was Annatar that wished to see him. He informs the king that Eregion is under a threat of invasion and that he needs more mithril. Man, I'm tired. For every new scene, there is at least 3 new problems to deal with. What is it this time? The main issue here is, how did Annatar manage to reach Khazad Dûm if Eregion is surrounded by orcs who kill every scout and whose only mission is to find him? The only explanation I can think of is that they were stopped by a river or some other natural obstacle, but I cannot possibly imagine why they wouldn't have circumvented it already to ensure that Sauron doesn't do exactly that. Leave Eregion by any of the routes from the city. If the orcs are so good at hiding that nobody spotted them, why didn't they wait until they wholly surrounded the city before they revealed their presence? Also, something less important, Durin was summoned only to listen to the conversation between his father and Annatar. There is no other reason. Why did Annatar wish to see him? I have no idea. Also, neither the king nor Durin ask about the invasion. They don't even ask who besieged Eregion. They just don't care. Can you imagine any ruler who hears about their neighbor being attacked and doesn't even bother to learn who is attacking? Not to mention other important matters like the position of the enemy, their intentions, numbers. No? Nothing? Well, we knew that the king is insane, but Durin? Truly a shame that he also says nothing. Anyway, Annatar offers timber and gold in exchange for mithril, but the king refuses. After Annatar leaves, the king informs his son that his strategy is to hoard mithril and use it for weapons and armor, and to sell it for a great price. That's great and all, but was any sort of weapon forged using mithril? How do they know its properties? Did they watch The Lord of the Rings? The show shouldn't rely on the movies to establish important information, that's just silly. Anyway, Durin, seeing that his father sees the war only as an opportunity for profit, concludes that he has gone mad from greed, took him long enough, and asks him to take the ring off to prove that it has no power over him. The king refuses, and then Durin tries to take the ring off by force. But the king, clearly helped by the ring's magic, tosses his son away a few meters. Next we see Durin, he is talking to Disa. She suggests to oppose the extraction of mithril by blocking the entrance to the mines. In her mind, the king would have to send the army, and this would show all the dwarves that he has gone mad, since he would be using military force against his own son. As if they needed any more proof than the insane taxes and piles of gold. Durin is against Disa's idea. He doesn't want to humiliate his father, and at the thought of raising a hand against him, he tears up. He still loves him. But Disa is unyielding. She believes that as long as the king keeps the ring, all dwarves of Khazad Dûm are in danger. Finally, Durin agrees to her plan. Quick aside, do you remember Durin's and Disa's kids? No? No worry, their parents don't remember about them either. But I do find it a bit strange that in all their scheming and planning a political revolution which can see them imprisoned, they don't even mention them. Now we know that Durin doesn't care about his neighbor's war, understands his father is insane, finally, doesn't want to humiliate his father, and has kids, allegedly. Now Disa, she is ready to start a revolution, and she has kids, allegedly. Then King Durin the puppet. He doesn't care about his neighbor's war, he has super strength thanks to the ring, and he is greedy, but it's pretty subtle, I wonder if you got that. And finally we learn that Adar didn't surround Eregion, which is a peculiar strategical decision. We then go to Númenor once again, and we learn that the trial that Elendil is to face is connected to the sea worm. The beast is currently being summoned. I'm sorry, the what? How do the Númenorians have any power over that creature, and why do they trust it to execute the will of the Valar? How did that tradition get established? Good questions, add them to the pile of the unsolved mysteries, please. So, next, Arwen begs her father to swear fealty to Pharazôn to swallow his pride. But Elendil says that if all she takes his stubbornness for is pride, then they will not find understanding. At this point, we should examine Arwen's motivation. We know that she didn't want the Númenorians to lose life in Middle-earth. Quite understandably, she blamed the queen for the loss of her brother. And that's it. And it is not enough to justify her current belief that Pharazôn is the rightful ruler. Yet that is the position that she for some reason has, and nothing seems to be able to change her mind. Her father is about to be executed, and Kemen killed her close friend Valandil after he spared his life. She must know it, there is simply no way she didn't hear about it. But her attitude towards Kemen and Pharazôn doesn't seem to have changed at all. And that's simply not how people work. Moving on, she tells Elendil that she asked Pharazôn to let the queen come, and he agreed. Then Míriel indeed comes and orders Elendil to submit to Pharazôn, as Númenor needs a man of faith such as him, alive, not dead. In answer, he says that faith is not faith if it is not lived. Once again, despite the surrounding issues, I can appreciate a good line when I see one. I must say that Elendil is the highlight of the season, and the scene of him choosing to face the trial and submit to the will of the Valar is good, or at least would be if it wasn't summarized by the famous "the sea is always right." Unfortunately for the show, I cannot take seriously any scene in which that line is said with a straight face. Alright, nothing to add to what we know already except for the fact that Eregion is utterly uncritical of Pharazôn and Kemen. Then we visit Khazad Dûm once again, and we see Narvi and some miners who come into the mines. Disa blocks their way, and as they go to force their way through, she screams and some bats come out of a cave. They only attack the other dwarves who run away, probably fearing that they will accidentally eat one of them and start a pandemic. Man, what a stupid scene. It is meant to look cool, but it is just ridiculous. The bats disappear after a minute, there's not even so many of them, but the dwarves run for their lives. And of course we should ask, how did Disa know that the bats are there? How did she know that they will not attack her? And are there no other entrances to the mine if this one is guarded by flying mammals and their guano? Also, is that Disa's plan? To attack the miners? How will it convince other dwarves that the king is insane? Hey people, look! He sent armed forces against his own son and me! Oi! After you committed a felony! Seems fair! Oh yeah, so now we know that Disa is Middle-earth version of Batman. I wonder who's Joker. There's so many candidates, but Galadriel probably takes it. Next we are on the Númenórean shore, and just before Elendil is thrown into the sea, the queen comes and says that as his crime was committed in her name, she may face the judgment in his place. So, if she dies, he will die as well, and if she survives, he will be released. So she goes into the sea, and then the sea worm comes, takes her, and then throws her back on the shore. So, to be clear, the trial is we summon an angry beast, if it kills you, you are guilty, if it doesn't, you are not. And the Númenóreans consider it a fair trial. What's more, in order for the story to function properly, Míriel and Elendil must hold that view. They must believe that there is a precedent of people surviving the trial, while Pharazôn must believe the opposite, that it is just a fancy execution. And as far as we know, they have the same initial information. So, which is it? In my view, the show tries to tell us, regardless of how bizarre it sounds, that the sea worm is executing the will of the Valar. But if it is so, then Pharazôn knowingly offered his opponents the best way of regaining popularity and proving their righteousness. After all, the Valar are not so easy to deceive as the Númenóreans. And Pharazôn chose this way of execution with all other options available. The death sentence was already proclaimed. He could have simply killed Elendil. Anyway, seeing that Míriel survived, Elendil shouts "Hail the Queen" and the people repeat the greeting. Are we really to believe that she just regained her throne? I mean, should we even be surprised if that's true? We already know that the Númenóreans are fickle beyond belief. If somebody yells loud enough, tomorrow they will choose the sea worm to be their king. But for now we know nothing more, we just see a short scene of Pharazôn looking into the Palantir, seeing Halbrand in Mount Doom and being terrified. Alright, so Míriel, she is ready to risk her life for Elendil, and she is righteous, so deem the sea worm. Then we see Galadriel and Adar. Galadriel admits that Halbrand is Sauron and that the rings are of his making. She then says that he will not leave Eregion until he has finished the rings. Excuse me, you clown. Where did you take that from? Where the actual hell does this information come from? There is nothing, literally nothing that warrants this to be true. She's either lying through her teeth or she is mental. She bases her plans on that assumption as if it was revealed to her in a divine vision, but she has the ring no more, so even that cannot save her statement. She has no way of checking if Sauron has not made all the rings he wanted already. He did have enough time. He would have finished long ago if not for the undiscernible reason for which the Smiths cannot create the 9 rings for men. And it's even worse. Sauron did go to Khazad-dûm, and Galadriel knows nothing about it. But, of course, as ordained by the higher powers, Galadriel is always right, and Sauron will be in Eregion for the final battle, but this is due to the arbitrary decision of the writers, not thanks to any quality of writing or reason. Anyway, Galadriel informs Adar that the elven armies are coming and that Elrond leads them and he has her ring. She believes that they will help them surround the city, and she says that all the corrupted rings must be destroyed. Adar asks what will happen with the orcs afterwards. He probably remembers that the last time he saw Galadriel, she promised him to eradicate all of his race on his eyes. He also apparently knows about the Gil-galad's plans to invade Mordor, which means that he read the script because there is no way in which he could get that information. Anyway, it seems that Galadriel doesn't want to let the orcs live in peace, which leaves Adar disappointed. But as she has confirmed his ungrounded yet correct suspicion who Halbrand is and foolishly told him that Elrond has her ring, now Adar has all the information he needs to execute his plan without the elves. Galadriel, seeing that she needlessly revealed vital information and that she might miss out on the opportunity to be in the center of attention and to be the one to defeat Sauron, claims that Og's attack on Eregion is in accordance with Sauron's plan and that he wanted to bring Adar's army there. How did you clown, reach that conclusion? Or are you just lying? But Adar pays no attention to her and orders some orcs to restrain her. All other orcs gather, light the fires and walk towards the city to start the siege. Hey, is that catapults? Excuse me, how did you bring them all the way across Middle-earth without anyone seeing you? Oh, sorry, they teleported. My bad, I keep forgetting. By the way, only now do the elves discover the presence of a giant army just beside their walls. Oh, and Annatar is back in the city. Told you, Galadriel was right. In the city, Celebrimbor hears the bells and screams and all the noise and he wants to look out. The openings in his window show that it is visibly nighttime, and I give you that very specific detail for absolutely no reason. But then Annatar comes, blocks his way, and says that he has everything under control and doesn't allow him to look out. Celebrimbor shows that at least a crumb of his sanity has remained intact because he doesn't trust Annatar's judgment and wants to go out. But, as he does so, Annatar creates an illusion of happy Eregion to fool Celebrimbor. Noticeably, it is daytime outside and Celebrimbor should be very suspicious, but he is calmed. Then Annatar shows him a vial with more mithril. He says he got it from Narvi, but that cannot be true. The Dwarven king forbid the trade in mithril, but let's put that aside. He convinces Celebrimbor that they are so close to their goal of creating the rings that they cannot give up. Celebrimbor goes back to the forge and then the illusion clears and there are people running around and screaming. Outstandingly, nobody cares to check on Celebrimbor even though a literal war has broken out, which probably counts as an emergency that is enough to disturb him. Is there nobody that wants to take orders from him? Well, apparently not. Well, with that the siege begins and the episode ends. Alright, so Galadriel needlessly reveals vital information to a likely enemy, and she draws unsubstantiated conclusions as she is certain that Sauron is in Eregion without any proof. Adar reads the script even more, and Sauron can create detailed visions. Finally, Celebrimbor shows some spine when he confronts Annatar, and he doesn't distinguish between night and day. Alright, let's summarize what we have seen. Firstly, Arondir appears for one scene so we don't forget he exists. Let's forget about him for now and move to Númenor. Elendil shows some moral spine and he is ready to sacrifice his life. However, both the previous and the current ruler of the kingdom do everything in their might to save him. Pharazôn finds the only way in which the execution of a traitor can turn into his opponent's triumph, while Miriel undergoes the trial instead of Elendil. Of course, we cannot exclude the role of the Sea Worm, who, apparently, is the executor of divine judgment and spares Miriel's life. In Rhûn, we see Hobbits who waste our time, and Gandalf and Tom Bombadil who do the same, but add to it some good old-fashioned theft and mockery. In Khazad-dûm, everyone is going insane. The king is still a greedy gremlin while Disa and Durin plan to start a revolution using bats. Finally, near Eregion, we see the army of orcs who are extremely competent and extremely incompetent at the same time. On one hand, they are exceptional at hiding, on the other, they needlessly reveal their presence and don't surround the city nor even observe it. Regardless, Adar and Galadriel are convinced that Sauron is still there. Adar makes plans based on information he cannot have, while Galadriel provides him all the information he wasn't certain about, and then she is surprised that he doesn't need her help anymore. Meanwhile, in Eregion, Annatar takes the reins of the city, but nobody cares because, as we established, he and Celebrimbor are the only characters there. Since Celebrimbor cannot tell night and day apart, he misses the fact that his city is being attacked by an army of orcs and goes back to working on the rings. What becomes of it we will learn in the future, but what we can say for now is, Amazon, don't make a show about so many characters, you clearly can't handle it, maybe cut those who are broken. Oh, wait. Then we would have a show about Beric and Elendil and no one else. Hey, it doesn't sound so bad. Alright, so there you have it, that's the review. The next thing that is coming is episode 7, the battle episode, and I expect to experience peak Rings of Powerisms there. But, as I told you in the last video, it will take time. It all takes time, much more time than I expected. When I started the series, I believed that by now I would be done with it and I could undertake other projects such as reviewing Arcane Season 2, which recently dropped. Regrettably, the prospect of reviewing Arcane is not in the near future, and I cannot promise anything regarding it. But, by the time that I release episode 8, the War of Rohirrim movie will probably be out and I intend to review it too, so the current schedule is this episode, episodes 7 and 8, the War of Rohirrim, and then the greatest, the longest and the most detailed video that I have ever done, so the whole season 2 of the Rings of Power analysis. I very much look forward to doing that and I hope to see you there. And yeah, that's the plan, I wanted to keep you updated, and now all that is left to say is thank you. I thank you for your attention, for your comments, for all your support. I hope to see you again very soon. Fare you well. Nova Year. He seems to suffer from dementia or by Alzheimer's disease. He is forgetting names and misremembering. Damn it, he got me too. Call me crazy, but I don't think that Oi, Archer, you committed a felony. Seems fair. I wonder if that's enough we call the races today.
Subscribe right now, you little hobbitses.